Good morning, everyone. We're going to start off with the bundle theory of substance today. It seems that according to the most plausible versions of the bundle theory, a concrete individual substance like an apple or a dog or a table is identical with a bundle or collection of particular concrete qualities or tropes, like the particular wisdom of Socrates or the particular savor or taste of a certain pickle, and so on. So an individual thing, like a pickle, would be identical with its particular color or greenness, the particular sour taste, the greenness of the pickle, the weight or mass of the pickle, and so on and so forth. But it seems that we need some kind of unifying relation to tie the things in the bundle together. Analogous to, say, a bundle of sticks. If you don't have a rope around it, the sticks would all just fall away. In the same way, it seems that we need some kind of tie or unifying factor or connection among the members of the collection that make up an individual substance according to this kind of bundle theory of substance. If we say that any haphazard or randomly chosen particular qualities constitute a substance, even if there's no tie or connection unifying them, then we seem to get very bizarre and unintuitive, unacceptably unintuitive results. For example, it would seem then that the shape of the tabletop, which is rectangular, together with the color of the book and so forth, that would make a collection of qualities, right? Of concrete qualities. This concrete particular rectangularity, this concrete particular redness, the sound of that door that just slammed down the hallway there, if you heard it, that particular quality of sound, of a door slamming, could be bundled together, and we then get an individual substance made up out of those particular qualities of the shape of the tabletop and the color of the book and the sound of the door. But there doesn't seem to be any individual substance formed by that collection of particular qualities. It seems quite different in the case of the pickle, where you have a particular greenness and a particular sourness and a particular pickle shape and a particular heft of the pickle, and so on. There it seems that the qualities are united to form the pickle. So there seems to be a difference between the two cases. If we say there's no unifying factor, then we're stuck with admitting, it seems, indefinitely many weird, scattered entities that have no substantial unity whatsoever. So how can we deal with this? If we say that as the collectionist says, that a substance is a collection or bundle of particular qualities or tropes of color, shape, size, weight, taste, smell, texture, and so on. We also need, it seems, to specify some relation among these qualities that unites them into a single object as opposed to some non-existent, haphazard, random grouping of scattered qualities that don't relate to each other. So what relation could we use then to unite these? Is the question. So there are a number of possibilities, and we could group them together in the following ways. The first is that what unites the qualities in a bundle is that they're in the same place at the same time. So that's the first answer that immediately jumps to mind. Because the sound of the door slamming and the shape of the table and the color of the book aren't co-located. But the color of the pickle and the taste of the pickle and the shape of the pickle and the weight of the pickle and so on are all in the same place at the same time. So it seems like that could be the answer, co-location of qualities. So then the bundle theory would say if you have a bunch of particular qualities and they're all in the same place at the same time, then at that time those qualities form a substance. So co-location. So answer one. Okay. Another possibility is that these qualities stand in some special causal relation to one another. They're causally interrelated to one another somehow, and that's what the unifying factor is. You see the difference between those two? So suppose you were a dualist like René Descartes, who says that human minds are actually immaterial souls that are diverse from the bodies that they are connected to. It would seem then that such souls would lack any spatial location, which would mean that their qualities as individual substance couldn't be co-located. So it seems that if we admit the possibility of Cartesian souls as non-physical, immaterial beings whose qualities are simply its mental qualities like consciousness and various thoughts and feelings, sensations, and so on that they have. The bundle theory, given the co-location interpretation, it seems wouldn't be able to accommodate Cartesian souls. So I guess they could be materialists. But on the other hand, it seems to be sort of presumptuous to just assume that as a basic assumption of the bundle theory. Certainly the bundle theory would be better off as far as ontological neutrality if it could accommodate the existence of substantial souls. So if we understand the bundle theory in terms of collocation, it seems like we can't abide non-physical souls. Some materialistic bundle theorists might be perfectly happy with that. But it's a big assumption to make. On the other hand, the causal interconnection interpretation doesn't rule out souls. It could be that the particular qualities of a soul, its particular consciousness, its particular jealousy, its particular thoughts, its particular sensations, are all somehow causally interrelated with one another in such a way so as to unify all these qualities into a single bundle, and they're not interconnected in that way with other mental states had by distinct or diverse souls. So that's one reason why it's important to distinguish these two interpretations. If we go with a causal theory, bundle theorist might be a dualist or an idealist, whatever, as far as that goes. Okay, third possibility is that there's some kind of logical or metaphysical connection that ties them together. Logical or metaphysical. Interconnection of some sort. So here it wouldn't be the connection among the particular qualities that make up the substance wouldn't be a causal one. It would be a relation that holds in terms of some logical or metaphysical tie. So causal connections, as we've seen, hold in virtue of natural laws. Fire causes smoke, so it's virtue of some natural law. So what's at stake with this third possibility is it would be some kind of non-causal logical connection of entailment. So if a given quality, say, entails, a given particular quality entails other particular qualities, they could be linked together by some kind of logical or metaphysical entailment. How that exactly would work, we don't know, but it's certainly a possibility. And finally, well, it could be that it's some kind of combination of these. So you say causal interconnection and collocation, right? Both, say, or something like that. Some combination of the above. And now, finally, some other kind of sui generis, unique, special relation that isn't covered by any of these. So it's not logical or metaphysical, it's not causal, it's not being in the same place at the same time, it's not a complex of these, it's some other thing altogether, some new relation that we discover. Some special relation other than the above. I think this covers all the possibilities. So the last one's kind of a grab bag. But doesn't seem like there's anything else in the offing that we could use. If it's not spatial or causal or logical or metaphysical or a combination of those things or some other kind of relation. So let's go through these then. So will co-location work, leaving aside souls? So we know if we have souls, that's not going to work because they're not located. That's a rather exotic possibility, but Descartes thought he could conceive of such a possibility, and it does seem conceivable. Descartes conceived that his whole life could be a dream, and there might not even be a physical world. Still, he could exist as a conscious, self-conscious, reflective intellect. So, no one's ever really shown why that's inconceivable. All right, so, but putting that aside, since there are many who adhere to the materialist philosophies, is there some problem for collocation as a criterion, anyway, of the unity of bundles for physical or material substances? Well, that divides into two questions. Does collocation provide a sufficient condition? Is it a necessary condition? Well, seems to be a necessary condition, right? Of a material substance's qualities. If you have a material substance, then it follows that all of its qualities are co-located. Seems, at first sight, that seems right. If you consider qualities of the whole table, all of those qualities are in the same place at the same time. But will it be sufficient to guarantee that we have a substance, that a bunch of qualities that exist in space and time are all in the same place at the same time? Or could such a thing fail to be a substance? Well, one kind of case seems to raise some difficulties would be that of an event, say, that occurs at a given time in a given place. Say a bolt of lightning strikes something, like a flagpole, right, or lightning rod. So you have this flash or bolt of lightning. Right in the sky. So it seems that we have an event there, and it seems to have certain qualities, that event, which are co-located with each other. Right, the flash has certain dimensions, right? Has a certain shape, zigzag kind of shape, right? Like a dagger with zigzags on it. So it has a certain shape and size. It has a certain charge, negative charge. Certain color, I think you can say. Makes a sound called thunder. Right, so it has all of these particular qualities, a particular sound, very loud sound, particular charge, particular shape and size, voltage, right? All these particular qualities, which are all in the same place at the same time, right? But it's not a substance, is it? No, it's an event, right? The flash, right? Or strike, lightning strike, or flash. Bolt, right? So the lightning bolt's not a particular substance, it seems. Certainly not if we classify it as an event, which we certainly could do, an occurrence or event. So it could have all these qualities in the same place at the same time, but it wouldn't constitute a substance. Yeah.
Would you consider the location or co-location somewhat relative? Because for the example of like the lightning bolt, you could have sound, and you could be so far away. I mean, you could be miles away and hear it, but
Or you could be right on top of it.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a question of its traveling.
Okay.
I mean, if you had a wristwatch, you could
Yeah.
hear it ticking, whatever, it would be the same thing, right? Either you hear it up close or hear it far away, and if you heard it if you were far away, it would take a certain amount of time for the sound to get to you. And same thing with the lightning, the sound that the lightning makes. The difference is that the sound that the lightning makes is over. I mean, the lightning doesn't last for very long, whereas the watch is there, maybe for years, before you have to throw it out because it doesn't work anymore. Or the battery goes bad and you don't want to replace it or whatever, right? Because the battery costs more than the watch did. Perils of modern life and technology, right? But yeah, so yeah, I mean, sound is an odd quality, but it's no odder for lightning bolts than for any other substances. I mean, we might want to say that sound's not actually one of the qualities of the object itself or something, but an effect. I'm not sure we should say that, but if we do, we'd say it for all things that make sound. And, it may not be an intrinsic quality, like mass is, and shape and size, and charge, and so forth. Seem to all be intrinsic qualities of an object, yeah. But the problem is that these qualities in the case of the lightning bolt, make up an event rather than a substance. So how would we get around that? Not so easy, right? I mean, one way might be to specify that to be a substance, the object has to have certain qualities, like be impenetrable, something like that. With the lightning bolt's not impenetrable, so it doesn't have that. So we might specify that one of the qualities in any bundle that makes up a material substance would have to be a particular impenetrability. The lightning bolt is penetrable, right, and it's like goes right through, right? Whereas objects don't seem to be, right? Like two books, right? They don't interpenetrate, so we think of them as substances. We don't think of the lightning bolt as one. It seems to just be a process or an event that occurs. But if there was an impenetrability there, right, then it would seem to have to be a substance. The trouble is that impenetrability seems to sort of be a question-begging quality to include. It's when you start to spell out what that is, it seems like you bring in the notion, you would inevitably bring in some notion of substance as a stuff or something like that has mass. So it doesn't seem like that's a good move to make. It seems like you'd get a circular analysis of substance. You'd be assuming substance in some kind of stuff sense that has mass at the very least, if not the notion of substance as an individual. Either way, it seems the analysis wouldn't be acceptable to a true bundle theorist. Yeah. So it looks problematic. The collocation theory looks like it's problematic. And there are other possible counterexamples, but I think this one might be the most convincing. If we can conceive of physical objects that can interpenetrate, pass through one another, like, say, photons, go through each other, then it seems that at some point in time you'd have collocated qualities that belong to distinct substances at the moment that they, right, there's a moment there where they're both in the same place at the same time. Then all the qualities of photon 1 and qualities of photon 2 are all in the same place at the same time, but these particular qualities of photon 1 only belong to photon 1, and these particular qualities of photon 2 only belong to photon 2. They're all in the same place at the same time. So it would seem then that the bundle theory would imply that there's got to be some photon that's made up of all the qualities of photon 1 and all the qualities of photon 2 at the moment that all those particular qualities are all in the same place at the same time. But there isn't any such photon as that. There are just the two photons that are going through each other. So it seems conceivable to have objects that can, physical objects that can interpenetrate each other. That would raise another counterexample to the collocation theory. You know, such objects aren't our ordinary objects. So this kind of example is rather theoretical. Yet it does seem conceivable, just as souls are conceivable, that we have interpenetrable, substantial physical objects. And it seems that our current physical theories actually allow for that, even imply it in certain cases. Though I guess it's disputable whether what they're talking about in these theories is exactly what we have in mind when we talk about objects being in the same place at the same time. Nonetheless, as I say, it does seem possible to have such objects. All right, so we might then move on to the causal theory. And anyway, it's better, right, if it can work, because it allows for non-physical substances, which would be a distinct advantage for such a theory. It would be more ontologically forgiving and neutral, able to accommodate a wider variety of ontological positions which we don't absolutely know to be false or impossible. So how would the causal theory go? Well, it would say something like, one possible way to formulate it would be to say that a set of particular qualities are causally united, say, if and only if, in every nomically possible situation. Okay, so nomic refers to laws, or nomos in Greek. So we've said causation depends on laws. So we're saying whatever laws you've got, whether they're laws of physics or laws of souls or whatever, right? These are all objects that fall under law-like regularities of some sort, either psychic or psychological ones, or physical laws, which are far more ordinary. Whichever it is, one formulation would say, in every nomically possible situation, if one of the qualities in the bundle or collection of particular qualities were to be deleted, were to go out of existence, in other words, then all of the other qualities in the bundle would go out of existence. This would hold for each and every quality in the bundle. Each quality in the bundle is such that given the laws, the relevant laws, if that quality were to go out of existence, all the others would go out of existence. So that would tie them all together. So if you were to destroy this quality, then it would take all the others out. If you were to destroy this other one, then it would take all the others out, and so on as you go through each one. So that would be one proposal for a kind of causal unity criterion. In every nomically possible situation, destroying any one of the qualities in the bundle takes out or destroys all of the other qualities in the bundle. That would be true of each and every quality in the bundle. So then they'd be all very tightly connected, causally. To destroy any one of them is to destroy all the rest. So will that work? Take then some physical object, right? Like a pickle, I'll say. So would that hold? Would destroying any one of the qualities destroy all the others? That doesn't seem to be the case for the pickle, does it? I mean, if it were to lose its taste because it, whatever, became, say, too old and it began not taste quite right, it could still have the same color or the same shape or the same weight or whatever, right? So it doesn't seem like all the qualities are connected in that way. Suppose you have some substance where they are all connected in that way. Could that substance change? Remember, Aristotle said that a substance is that which paradigmatically or typically is capable of undergoing intrinsic qualitative change. So if you have an individual substance composed of particular qualities such that destroying any one of the qualities would take all the rest with it, could such an object change? Well, if you would destroy one quality, all the qualities would be destroyed, and then you wouldn't have that substance anymore, right? Because all the qualities of it would be gone, including its essential quality. So it would cease to exist. So it couldn't change, could it? It could only go out of existence, right? So it would have to be a static entity. It could go out of existence or come into existence, but it would be immutable whenever it existed. Yeah.
Could this be applied to more abstract concepts? Like, I just keep thinking, it's my archaeology class, there's like, we got on the board, like what defines a classical Greek hero, and it's like,
Yeah.
selfless, sort of,
Right.
heroic, this, that kind of thing. It's like, but if one of those qualities gives that resistance, they're no longer like a Greek hero, they've compromised their morals or something like that, or would that be,
Yeah.
could that be applied in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So this seems more appropriate for kind of abstract. This definition seems more appropriate for some kind of abstract notion rather than a concrete substance. So I guess I'm trying to think of another example. Say if you had some abstract entity like the number 7. So if you were to take away, say, its oddness, it would lose all of its quality, right? I mean, it wouldn't be the number 7 anymore if it wasn't odd. So whatever qualities 7 has, like being the successor of 6 and the predecessor of 8 and an odd number and so on and so forth. If you took away any one of its intrinsic qualities, it would go out of existence. All of its intrinsic qualities are essential to it. Take away any one of them and it ceases to exist and loses all of its qualities, right? So that's sort of like the notion of the ideal Greek hero.
What that is for my next essay.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't think we want to say that those things are substances in the sense that we're trying to define, anyway. Plato may have thought that they were the primary beings, and that's fine. They're substances, I guess, in that sense, within the context of Plato's theory. But they're not the sorts of things that we're talking about when we talk about trees and tables and chairs. They're a wholly different kind of thing, namely abstract objects that can be exemplified or not exemplified. As Aristotle pointed out, substances, primary substances are quite different than those things. They're neither set of a subject nor in a subject, unlike those abstract entities or universals. So, yeah. But anyway, it seems to be the case that that interpretation of the causal interconnection is too strong. It would imply that substances could never undergo change. And that condition seems too strong. We want to allow for the possibility that substances can change, like Descartes' piece of wax. Goes from being hard to squishy as you heat it up, and its color changes, and its odor, and its temperature changes, so on. So it seems like that connection is too strong. So instead of saying in every nomically possible situation, that relationship holds, such that destroying any one of the members of the collection of particular qualities takes out the other particular quality. We could say instead that in some nomically possible situation, destroying one of the qualities would destroy all the rest. Right? So in some nomically possible situation, for any of the particular qualities in the collection, if you destroy it, in some situation, destroying it is sufficient for destroying all the rest, and that's true of each quality. But we're not saying in every situation. So this will allow then for change, if you say this. Because in the other situations, right, we're not saying that changing the quality would result in all of the things losing all of its qualities. Just at some times. Okay. But then the relation becomes too loose, unfortunately. So imagine that you have two very fragile teacups. So here you have two different individual substances, two very fragile cups. And say they're very close to each other. Right, so here you have two individual substances. I suppose they're so fragile, though, that in some situation, if you move one of them, it will bump into the other one and cause them both to shatter. Right, like the bowl that comes into the china shop. Right? If you just brush by one of them, it's going to clink into the other one. They're going to smash. They're really, really fragile. So then in some nomically possible situation, right, all of the particular qualities of cup one and all of the particular qualities of cup 2 meet the relation. Because in some nomically possible situation, destroying one of the particular qualities of one cup will cause all of the others to be destroyed. So all of the qualities of the two cups then make up something as well. So now it seems that you've got cup 1, cup 2, plus something made of qualities of the two cups together. Well, what's that? Well, it doesn't seem like there is any such third entity or third cup made up of the qualities of the other two cups. Even though in some nomically possible situation, destroying the, say, particular the particular resting state. So destroying the particular being at rest of cup 1 will cause the particular being at rest of cup 2 to cease to exist, and together with that, all of the other particular qualities of cup 1 and cup 2, because they'll both disintegrate. Therefore, all those particular qualities that cup 1 had and all the ones that cup 2 had will go out of existence when the being at rest of one of the cups is destroyed by somebody bumping into it and moving it, making it clink against the other one, and then they both go out of existence. They would then become one object together, which is wrong. Okay, so it seems that on either interpretation of the causal interconnection theory, it's going to not work. It's either going to be so strict as to not allow substances to change at all, or so loose as to have the consequence that the qualities of two distinct substances are united together to form a third substance, when they're not so united at all. So that won't work. That won't work. A logical or metaphysical interconnection. I guess it seems at first sight, anyway, that that's going to have the same kinds of problems as the causal theory. I mean, if we substitute, not that the qualities, each quality in the bundle in some situation will cause the other, but actually logically entails it, then we're also going to get a thing that can't change. So it doesn't seem like we'd be any better off with the logical theory. Combining these isn't going to help. If you combine things that don't work here, you're just going to get something that will have all the same problems, inherit the same problems as the original theories had. So, what should we do? Well, we might opt for the special relation theory. So some have said that there's a special relation. Bertrand Russell called it compresence, that all of the qualities that compose a substance, particular qualities, are compresent at a given moment. And so the redness, the particular redness of this book, and the particular rectangularity of this book, and the particular weight of the book, and the particular consistency of the book, and its particular shininess, and all these things, are all compresent. That sort of sounds like being in the same place at the same time. But I don't think it means that, because if it did, he would have said they're all in the same place at the same time. So this is some special relation other than the above. which we can't define. We learn what it is by abstracting from substances. We observe that all these substances have sets of particular qualities that they exemplify, which are all present at a given moment and in the same place. And from this we get the idea of this non-spatial, non-causal, non-logical relation of compresence. It's undefined. Hector Neri Castaneda, who's another defender of the bundle theory, calls the relation consubstantiation. That one sounds more like it's the relation that the qualities of a substance have that unites them. Whereas this one sounds more like the collocation. But they're both supposed to be undefined terms that do the job of uniting. So here are some quotes. Russell says, two events are compresent, quote unquote, when they are related in the way in which two simultaneous parts of one experience are related. At any given moment, I am seeing certain things, hearing certain things, touching other things, remembering others, and expecting yet others. All these percepts, recollections, and expectations are happening to me now. I shall say that they are mutually compresent. So Russell appeals to the notion of self in order to give some intuitive backing to this notion of compresence. The self is that to which various distinct mental particulars are related. They're all present in the same self somehow. But it can be objected that a reduction of substances to collections of particular qualities cannot rely on a unifying relation which has no intuitive content other than a relation of inherence, mutual inherence to a substance. If we'd just be going around in a circle if we define the unity of a substance's qualities in terms of a substantial self and the idea that its qualities all mutually inhere in that same self. Yeah. It's on page 36 of Substance, Its Nature and Existence. Here's what Castaneda says about consubstantiation. He says, we take physical objects to be very special systems of what he calls guises, appearances, I guess, intimately related to one another by just one very special relation that cannot receive a better name than consubstantiation. So I think here the circularity is just blatantly like thrown in your face. He's putting the idea of a substance right there in the name of the relation. So how does this afford a reduction of substances to particular qualities when we need a relation that we can't understand except by assuming that all of the qualities inhere in one and the same substance? Ironically, these kinds of moves or maneuvers on the part of the bundle theorist seem to illustrate another maxim of Russell's that he put forward in a different context, which is that they have all of the advantages of theft over honest toil. So they don't really seem to be legitimate maneuvers, unlike these other attempts, which try to spell out or explain what's meant by a unifying tie or connection among qualities. Just to introduce some primitive term and wave your hands around. Doesn't seem to really do much unless you can explain what these things mean in terms of other familiar relations. I mean, these are unfamiliar, unknown relations, consubstantiation and compresence. And if we can explain them in terms of collocation or causal interconnection or some logical or metaphysical tie or whatever, then we're making progress. But to turn around and explain them in terms of an appeal to qualities or states mutually inhering in some substance doesn't do anything in terms of explaining what's supposed to be meant by these things. So, yeah, all right. Right, so the bundle theory or collectionism then is faced by, it seems to be a fairly persistent and difficult problem of unity of qualities. What unites the qualities of an individual, the particular qualities of an individual substance? Not at all clear how they can address this one, as we've seen, in such a way that not insubstantial things, like far-flung random collections of properties or events, which seem to have a unity of qualities all their own, but it's not a substantial unity. We don't want these turning out to be substances. There's another problem, which is the problem of excessive essentialism, which I haven't touched on so far. So there's the unity of qualities problem for the bundle theory, and then there's a problem with excessive essentialism. The problem of excessive essentialism for the bundle theorist of substance arises out of the fact that the parts of a collection are essential to it. So if you adopt a straightforward or simple type of bundle theory, which says that you've got a bunch of particular qualities, the redness of the book, the shape of the book, the size of the book, the weight of the book, and so on. And these are all united somehow by being in the same place at the same time or being causally interconnected or whatever. Then the book turns out to be identical with this collection of qualities, but the qualities in that collection are parts of the collection, and the parts of a collection are essential to its identity as being that collection, which means then that that substance, which is identical with that collection, has all of the qualities in the collection at a given time, essentially or necessarily. So again, it can't change. So the book's identical with the collection of its color, its shape, its size, etc. Which would mean that the color of the book can't change. But the color does change. If you leave it out in the sun, the redness will fade and it'll become all washed out, but it'll still be the same book. So books can change but their qualities, but collections cannot change their parts. To change the part of a collection is to create a new collection. It's not the collection of A, B, C, and D anymore. Now it's the collection of A, B, C, and X, right? Some new thing. Yeah.
Well, what about the addition to the collection? Like for the book, for example, it'd be like if you remove the page, it's no longer the same collection. But if you had like your pickle example, if you added another pickle to the bundle, it's still a collection. Even if you take one away, it's still a collection. So
Yeah, but it's not the same collection. Now it's a bigger collection.
oh, so it's, okay.
So it's a whole new
It's
thing.
a whole individual sort
It's a whole new thing.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Can it be a whole new thing once you change the collection in any way, either by subtraction or addition to the qualities of the collection?
It's kind of like that, what we went over on individual.
Mereological
That's
essentialism.
it, yeah.
Yeah, it's mereological essentialism for collections, but now it affects properties.
Right.
Because according to the bundle theory, the substance's properties are just members of a collection which constitute the very substantialness of the substance. There is no substance there except for, according to this model, this idea of a substance. Substantiality reduces to a bunch of qualities that are connected together and named as that collection. So if you change any of the qualities in the collection, you get a different substance. But that seems wrong. It seems like a substance can persist or endure through changes in its qualities, either losing qualities it had before or gaining qualities it didn't have before. Like if you become angry, say, when you weren't angry before, and you're gaining a new quality. And you're probably also losing some other one, right? Like before you were calm. So you've lost the quality of calmness and gained the quality of anger. So we've subtracted one and replaced it with a new one, right? So it's now a different collection. It doesn't have calmness, which it had before, and it's got anger, which it didn't have before. So it's a whole new collection, so a whole new you. It's not you. It's your counterpart or something, right? At best. So that's excessive. So that's the problem of excessive essentialism. It seems that the collection or bundle theory of substance implies that all of the qualities of a substance are essential to it, and it can't undergo change. So how do we get around that one? Well, you might say, well, the substance could theoretically still change depending on exactly how we think of this. We might say, well, we should think of the substance not as a collection just of its qualities at a certain time, but an evolving sequence of collections, which would allow the substance to have different qualities at different times. So we might say that what's essential, on this kind of reading of the bundle theory, we might say that what's essential to you, say, if you become angry at a certain particular time, is that you're angry at that time. So we'd be identifying a substance with particular qualities had by it at various times in sequence. So if you're angry at T1 and calm, suppose you're calm at T1 and angry at T2. I guess that was the example, right? First you were calm and then you got angry, rather than the reverse. Of course, you could become calm again after, right, your episode of anger is over and so on. So you're calm, then you're angry, then you're calm, right? So at one time, call it T1, you have the property of being calm at T1, then at T2 you have the property of being angry at T2, and at T3 you have the property of being angry at T3, and so on. So according to this version of the theory, the bundle that makes you up is made up out of these temporally indexed properties. This would allow you then to change. So you'd wind up having these properties essentially. The property of being calm at T1, angry at T2, and calm at T3. So you'd have those essentially now. Because those would be the parts of the collection, the temporally indexed properties. So you could change from calm to angry back to calm. The bundle theory would allow that. But at the price of making being calm at T1, angry at T2, and calm at T3, each of those now would be part of a collection. And if you were to take those out, it wouldn't be you. So what that would mean is that your temporally indexed properties would become essential to you. And that's still excessive because it seems right to say, doesn't it, that suppose that what made you angry was a certain particular thing that you observed. It seems possible that you hadn't observed it at that time. It would still have been you in existence. And then you wouldn't have been angry then, but it still would have been you. So it doesn't seem to be essential to you that you're angry at T2. Nor is it essential to you that you're, say, sitting now, because you could have, you could stand now, right? You wouldn't go out of existence if you had done that. You're not essentially sitting, right? So, so it still seems excessive on this kind of view. Even if we modify it in such a way that it can allow for you to change, it still seems to have excessive essentialistic implications. That you're necessarily sitting now or angry now or whatever, and that you couldn't have lacked that property now. But surely we could have. We have, it seems, enough free will to have brought it about that we didn't have that property now and we would still have existed. Wouldn't have harmed us in the least. Wouldn't have caused us to go out of existence. Another way to go is, on behalf of the bundle theory, is to think along similar lines, but we can go further, I think, in trying to help the bundle theorist. We might think of a substance not as a collection of certain properties, but as a sequence, a temporal sequence, and the things in the temporal sequence are collections of your qualities at various times. So the sequence would be ordered, going from earlier to later times. And so at one time in the sequence, you'd have a certain collection or set or whatever, collection of properties, and then following that, another collection of properties, which may be different, right? Generally would be some change, or there'd be a lot of overlap. Right? So you have all these collections with these particular qualities. sounds like this kind of, you might call this a sequentialist theory of substance. So a substance isn't just a collection of qualities, it's a sequence of collections of qualities, temporal sequence of collections of qualities. Here's what Bertrand Russell says. At one point, he's a sequentialist. Another point, he was a bundle theorist. He says, a piece of matter which we took to be a single persistent entity before we apprehended the truth, nature of these things, is really a string of entities, like the apparently persistent objects in a cinema. So when you look at the screen, it looks like you're seeing substantial forms there, but actually they're flickering, right? There's actually little frames, one following another, following another. And there's no reason why we should not say the same of a mind. The persistent ego, the enduring or persistent ego, seems as fictitious as the permanent atom. So both of these have to go by the wayside. Both are only strings of events having certain interesting relations to one another. So I guess this also raises the question of exactly what relations the different parts of the sequence have to one another in this temporal sequence. I imagine they'd be causal relations of some sort, but whether that can be adequately spelled out is a further interesting question. The question I want to look at now is, what are the identity conditions of these sequences? I mean, if we say that sequence 1 is identical to sequence 2, when and only when all the terms in the sequence are exactly the same, then we're back to the implications of collectionism, of excessive essentialism. Basically, that all of the qualities, at least that you have at a given time, you essentially have at that time, though you could have different ones at another time. But that you have them then is essential to you, so you couldn't have done something different then, which seems excessively essentialistic. We might, though, try to adopt a more liberal notion of sequence identity. We might say that what's crucial to sequence identity is that the origin is the original or first term in the sequence be the same. And then they could evolve off in different ways, provided that the very first stage of the sequence is the same. The sequences are identical or can be identical. This would allow us then to say that you could have all kinds of different subsequent stages. So you could be angry at T3 or not be angry at T3 or whatever, provided that you had certain properties at the very beginning, the first moment you existed. It would just be required then that the properties you had at the first moment of your existence would be essential to you at that moment. So you could have a case where you have a sequence A, B, C, D, and so on. Another sequence, A, X, Y, Z, can be the very same sequence because it starts with A. So long as it starts with A, it can go anywhere. That would be the idea. Very weak condition of sequence identity. But it seems like you could hold that view. The problem, though, is that again, it's still excessive because why does your first stage have to have exactly the properties that it has at that time. Think of a book, say, right? It's made together out of paper pages and a cover and so on. So suppose before all the parts were sewn together, right? The book comes into being, say, when the cover is attached, all the pages are attached to each other. The pages are printed out and everything, right? The book comes into being when they're all sewn together, including the cover. But suppose prior to sewing together, the cover was left out in the sun, right? Had been left out in the sun and it got bleached out and became less, the redness of it was less bright. So there was a different particular redness in there. But then when we sewed all the pages together, the book came into existence. It would have had a different particular quality there at the origin, whatever time that was. So it seems that that book could have existed with a different first stage, provided it was made of all the pieces of paper that it's made of now, except that one of them had been left out in the sun and faded. Still would have been that book. It's got all the parts of the book. Just one of them has a slightly different quality than the book actually has. So it seems wrong, excessively essentialistic to say that the book's first stage must have had every quality that it in fact has. And that seems the best we can do for the sequentialist view. Because if we say that even the first stage isn't essential to the sequence, then it seems that we don't have any criteria of identity at all for a sequence. Right? Because then A, B, C, D can be identical to W, X, Y, Z, whatever, and they have nothing in common at all. How could that be? Especially if they're two different sequences. So it looks like collectionism is faced with these two very difficult problems: unity of qualities and excessive essentialism. So next time I'll look at a version of bundle theory that tries actually to cope with these two problems in terms of logical or metaphysical relations among particular qualities. And we'll see that it can do fairly well, but I'll argue that in the end there are still counterexamples roughly along the lines that we've discussed that bedevil the thing. But it is possible, I think, to do better than, for the bundle theorist to do better than he's done so far, by having a more sophisticated conception of how the particular qualities of a trope relate to one another.